Tone.
Dude, how are you?
Dude. Good. It's so funny.
Hey, so
we both have had like a dozen numbers to hide ourselves from the world.
I know. I went to go call you to start this interview, and I'm like, I've got 6 phone numbers. Which one is it? Hey, listen, I don't know. I'm using this new app. I'm using this new podcast system called Anchor, and it does stuff automatically. It seems badass, so I started a few days ago. So we're gonna do this talk because it's so important, and hopefully it'll record. And if it doesn't, we'll just do it again. But so I want to talk about your trip. But first, for people who don't know who you are, and they should, we've known each other almost 10 years, and you've always been playing around. I'll do a little preamble, and then we'll just let it just roll and see where it goes. But so I've known Brian MacKenzie almost 10 years, got, turned on to him through his work with CrossFit and his endurance training and his program there. We became good friends, probably because of our love of tattoos and other things. But the thing for people listening here is in the probably last January, I started getting pains down my legs, my lower back, and went and had an MRI and found out that I had like a bunch of things going wrong with my body, mostly because of the injuries and abuse I put my body through developing the combative system that I did. Of course, in the days when I started, there was no, lacrosse balls and foam rollers, and nobody mentioned stability, mobility, or even like warming up was like, how long it took you to put your gloves on and get in the ring. And so I did a lot of stupid things to my body, and I've had chronic pain in my neck, shoulders, back, and a lot of bad things going. And then about 2 weeks before my summer camp, I got hit with Bell's palsy, which can be triggered by nerve compression. I was getting some body work done on me. I got some kind of a weird stretch from, it was totally accidental. But as it happened, I remember thinking to myself, that wasn't good. And my neck freaked out that week, and I developed this nerve compression. I lost all control of the left side of my face, Google Bell's palsy. And then my house flooded at the same time. One of the things with Bell's palsy is, to help recover and the nerve regeneration is, be as stress-free as possible. So here I am, haven't worked out since January because of the back shit, get the Bell's palsy, and then the house flooded, got to remove the furniture, tear up the floors, live in hotels. And, I look like a Picasso, frickin' Salvador Dali picture, like my face is completely, I'm freaking out. And one of the things that really hit me was like my self-image. I've been a public speaker. I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk properly. I felt I looked like a freak, and all of this leading me to this chance meeting with Andy, where I wanted to talk to him about some other stuff, and I kind of open up about the Bell's palsy and all that, and go, "Do you know anything? Any ways to heal it?" And he goes, "Have you spoken to Bmac?" And I go, "No." And he goes, I think he's doing some stuff with anxiety and stuff, because what had happened was my nervous system couldn't take anymore. And so I'm just catching listeners up here, Bri. And I called, so here I am, Mr. Obstacles the Way, Mr. Stoic Lifestyle, Mr. Warrior. And while all of that stuff was working, something wasn't working. I was, like near full-on panic attacks, because I was in so much pain. I'd be lying in my bed. I have about an hour and a half of energy a day, and then I just couldn't work just because of just what was going on in my face with the nerves in my back. No outlets. I couldn't do anything like physical. Imagine so I'm 57. For almost 50 years, I've been physical, and then someone just turns it off. And when Andy said, "Hey, check out what Brian's doing with the breathing," I called up. You are incredibly busy now, probably busier than you've ever been. And you got back to me in the text going, "Hey, I'll hit you up in 2 weeks." And I was like, no, I may not be here in 2 weeks, right? And I sent you kind of another distress text, but I think I was very oblique about it. Well, if you can fit me in, I kind of got some shit going on, you called me, and I'm just going to be really direct and blunt on here at the risk of compromising my image with Tony is like this.
At the risk of being vulnerable.
At the risk of being truthful, I fucking lost it on. I mean, I was just like freaking bawling like a 7-year-old. Got my breath together, caught my breath. At which point you proceeded to tell me that you have been doing amazing work on fear and anxiety and breathing. And I got to say this just in advance, because then I want to kind of like throw a couple questions at you and just let you ramble. What Brian did is, first of all, he calmed me down, talked to me for about 30 minutes, had me do a little, was a CO2 tolerance test in the car? Was that what you called it, or no? That's something different, right?
Yeah.
And then he gave me this simple, protocol, had me, download a breathing timing app, and gave me, 3 exercises, one for like high stress, one for morning, one for night, based on a bunch of research that he'd been doing with his team. And I get, so I'm listening to everyone listening to this. Within like 3 days, my disposition, my mindset, my wondering if I'm going to be in this much pain and mentally miserable totally changed, where I was working an hour and a half a day, and now I'm like back to 6, 7, 8 hours going, okay, take it easy, calm down. Like my energy changed, my mood changed. And what drugs am I on? I'm fucking breathing. I'm just breathing properly. And like I have my life back. Literally, it took about a week of, I should send you my cumulative breathing stuff, because like I was doing it several times a day. It wasn't just morning and night. And anytime, I've got a lot of self-awareness from all my years of other stuff. Anytime I had any type of fear spike or adrenaline dump, I'd immediately go into, the stress breathing and just calm down. And it's honestly just changed my fucking life in a week. So
yeah,
that's so. This all, yeah, it's crazy. So what prompted this call is I just posted on Brian's Instagram feed, and if you're not on that, you should go Google it. It's at I Am Unscared, correct?
Yeah,
your
on
personal.
Instagram.
Yeah. And then Art of Breath, and because the writing on there and some of the stuff there, it's so. I reposted your, one of your posts. I think that you posted it after we talked, all about fear. It was that original post with the shark, and I made this. So for everybody who knows what I do, is I made this amazing connection between the physiology and the breathing, because all my work is on the physiology of fear, and I hit myself in the head, going, how have I overlooked the relationship to breathing during all this? So I was all about converting the physiology, which is a relevant thing, but it just excited me as like a little kid again, like looking at stuff. But so why don't you fast forward and fill in, in a nutshell, what you shared with me about, hey, get your shit together, in the whole breath chasing physiology and vice versa, and how we're looking at that wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think so many of us at this point have now looked at, between yourself, myself, even guys like Kelly Starrett, even people who've been practicing breath work for 20, 30 years,
right,
have not looked at breathing the way that we're really looking at it right now, which I definitely think I'm fortunate in how I land on things, but I definitely think there's a certain path that I've chosen to live on that it's not all, it's an up and down cycle thing. I'm never going to be the running guy. I'm never going to be the endurance guy. I'm never going to be just the breathing guy. I'm going to come in and understand something to the best that I can and the way that I can and shed kind of a light on it that I see things and where I see either holes or opportunities. And I think opportunities is actually the better word.
Right.
You know, and there's a guy who, you know, and I talk about this actually quite frequently now. There's a guy who wrote 2 books that have probably impacted my life more than any other 2 books. And the first one's called Sapiens. The second one's called Homo Deus. And the guy's name is Yuval Harari. And he talks largely about history. And he's a historian. He's out of Israel. He's a PhD. And, you know, history is nothing more than stories. And we tell ourselves stories, and we get fixated on our stories, and this leads us down our path. And there's nothing about the future that we've really been good at predicting. But there is one thing that you can count on about predictability about the future, and that is behavior. And, you know, we have behaved largely the same since we began as a species. And, you know, if our behavior doesn't change, we're certainly, you know, on a quick path to eradicate ourselves in some way, shape, or form, especially when the superhumans start to come. And I don't mean to kind of get off topic, but it does come down this way because even guys like Elon Musk are talking about connecting a human brain to AI in the next 10 years. And as soon as that starts to happen, we will start to have a new race of human beings that are evolving. And what's going on as a species, and the reason this really fits into the work that I'm doing now is because in less than probably the next 5 years, mental disease will be the biggest killer of everything that we know, whether it's anxiety or depression, which fall into the same category largely. And we all deal with anxiety, anxiousness. We all deal with depression and some sort of it to some degree throughout a daily basis. It's just how we fixate on it. And largely this has to do with our autonomic nervous system and sympathetic tone or parasympathetic tone. And most of us get caught up in the sympathetic tone space, and that's that go, fake busy type of world we all really live in. I have, you know, largely my career has been based on being fake busy. You know, I'm actually sitting on a deck right now in Oregon after just basically going full throttle for 2 weeks, and I'm coming off of a trip that was, you know, just crazy. And it's a trip sitting here and looking out in my yard. My dogs are just kind of wandering around on the 7 acres that we live on right now, and I'm watching them, and I'm watching the sun, and I'm seeing the mountains, which are covered in snow, and there's not a lot going on, and it's pretty fucking cool because we are caught in a world, and this is like why Andy Galpin and I got worked together on the last project that we did with Unplugged, the book. We're caught in a world where technology far exceeds our ability to adapt. And the problem with that is that we get caught up in thinking that the technology is going to guide us in a way that we can't naturally do. And fortunately for us, breathing is the remote control to our brain and our nervous system. But we've largely lost that connection. And, you know, yoga and a lot of the, you know, and these Buddhist practices have been talking about this for thousands of years. Martial arts has been talking about it for probably 5,000 years. You know, breath is attached to just about everything. You've understood this to a large degree, and it's like, oh, why didn't I land on this? Like, how didn't I think about it like this? And the problem, there's no problem. The missed opportunity in all of that is that we haven't really looked at the fact that there's really no one train. You know, it's like training, man. There's no one training program that fits everybody. We could all do the same training program.
Well, this is what I was going to say, and it's one of the reasons why what I do in terms of personal defense is so controversial. Is 20 years ago I said everyone needs to have their own style because everyone's a different body type, everyone's got a different psychology, and where and how you get attacked is going to be unique to you. So if you don't see yourself as a human weapon system and understand what you can do off balance emotionally, psychologically, and physically, what's happened is your cognitive brain is going to be racing to find this particular, where should my feet be on the rice paper, and you said something about the breath, and I want to just kind of like illuminate that a little bit more for listeners, and you said it to me, and when you study a certain style of yoga, you get taught a certain style of breathing, just like studying a certain style of martial arts. And then what happens is, that works great. And, one of the things I quoted Alan Watts in my comment to you, is something I heard him say, like, on a tape 20 years ago, if you can't meditate in a boiler room, you just can't meditate. And what he's saying is, like, you can't run from life. You can't, and so, like, I'm not saying don't go to hot yoga and get into your yoga mood, but the bottom line is that the only time that you're chill and relaxed is when you've got like a synthetic environment that's forcing you to chill and relax. How do you handle real life? And that's what I loved about my experience with you, because it came at me at when I was like so overwhelmed, and it was so simple to regulate and restore just by thinking about the breathing, the relationship in the breathing. And what stuck out at me was almost like, when people finally figured out that you need to be a mixed martial artist if you're going to compete, that you can't be a specialist, and it was something that Coach Glassman said, like you can't fixate and hope that just being strong or just being fast or just being agile, because you don't know, what the stimulus is going to be. And I think that's an important thing for people, like doing more research on what you're doing, is like I had a morning and a night and a stress. And then when we got together a week later with Jess, you introduced a couple other concepts, and it was like, well, wait a minute. So this is movement for your lungs and your breathing and your brain. And it's an exercise that I do it while I'm driving. I do it when I wake up in the morning. I do it, I'll step away from a meeting or get ready for a meeting, but I can't shadow box. Like, it's going to change my energy. I'm going to walk in there and I want to punch someone in the throat, right? It's super, super cool. And I think the thing that, again, that I'm excited about is what you're talking about. And you mentioned it in your personal post today, that, like, while the foundational principles are like, principles don't really change, but things need to be tweaked based on like who you are. What's going on in your life.
That's really the premise of what we started to understand. And, for me, it was, I was deep. I was doing a lot of work with Wim Hof. He and I were hanging out, and we were doing a lot of stuff together. But I was noticing that people that were actually doing his method weren't exactly getting the same reactions. In fact, I saw a lot of people getting some highly emotional reactions, and then I saw people getting like highly revved up and like, ready to like, they wanted to go fight, or they wanted to go have sex, or, there was just all these things that were happening, and that which is great. And I'm not putting Wim's done a profound job with this space, but that was the first kind of time I was like, holy shit, like, there's more to this. And then we started getting into kind of the CO2 tolerance thing and understanding CO2's relationship to anxiety.
Explain a little bit about that, because before we got on the call, you talk about the CO2 relationship, because a lot of people think they got to get, a lot of people like, it's a misunderstanding. It's like, I got to fill my lungs with oxygen. I've got to think about it as a layperson as an oxygen thing.
Yeah, so the paradox here is that, or the opportunity, as I like to kind of, the possibilities of this thing is, it's not about how much air you actually get in. It's not, I need more air. We don't breathe because we need more air. We breathe because we need to get rid of CO2. You're being triggered to breathe because CO2 is building. It's really hard for you to get oxygen levels so low that your body isn't actually working properly. But the conundrum here is that when we're not CO2 tolerant, where we don't, and the Buteyko method, which is a Russian system method, and there's a guy by the name of Dr. Patrick McEwen, I believe he has a PhD now. He wrote a book called The Oxygen Advantage. He's done a tremendous job at getting this information out there, but the connection to CO2 and all of like these issues that we start to see, we'll see them related to just about every single disease, with respiration rate. High respiration rates or chronic hyperventilation is a huge issue. And that isn't that I'm getting more oxygen, it's that I'm blowing off CO2 because I'm CO2 intolerant. So the problem that I started to pick up on was that we saw, well, first, everything always starts with myself. And I start to pick up on things and start to connect dots and go, damn it, I've got this issue. And then I start looking at other people or people I'm working with or even my wife. And then it's like, it starts to materialize where it starts to grow and expand outside into my first line of fire, like the people I work with. And we start to pick up on things. And then we start, I basically just started to pick up on the fact that we have gold medalists, we have professional athletes at the top of the game who are highly CO2 intolerant. And this kind of fits into the same category as you can win gold medals and you can win world championships in poor positions. You can win things and be the best at things and still be a broken mess. That is a fact. But if we want to really look at long-term things and look at the psychology of a lot of this stuff, or even the mentality of these things, one thing I picked up on in being married to a two-time Olympic gold medalist and being around a lot of Olympians, I've been surrounded by many different sports that are inside the structure of the Olympics or even professional sports, is a lot of these athletes are dealing with some very, very big issues when they are not winning or that these sports come to an end. And these are long-term issues that we can pick up on very easily in season or in term of basically their career, and they can show up as either CO2 intolerant issues or even highly parasympathetic issues where we see the other end of anxiousness or anxiety, which is depression. And this isn't to come out and say, oh, we need to start testing these people and all this stuff, but yet, yes, we kind of do, because we can actually see not only increases in performance that are unbelievable, but the psychology of the athlete or the psychology of the person. And I mean, from the people I've been working with, I mean, I've been able to work with some very high level people, whether it's in Hollywood or sports or whether it's just, executives, in business. It's people who are dealing with issues that we didn't realize were going to have an impact. And I'm not running around going, we need to get people off of medication and this is going to replace what Western medicine does. I'm somebody who's actually working with MDs, who's working with PhDs now, and we're really looking at how we can bring something to help people that you can't out fitness, and this is part of that issue, is that you cannot out fitness these issues because your autonomic nervous system doesn't work that way. It is something that actually is on autopilot when you go into it, which is the work like you talk about, like, hey, fear, and the whole system you've created is what the fuck happens when the shit hits the fan. Well, you're left to your best fucking development. Like, what have you trained? And that's where it comes down to.
It's so fascinating because, we look at all of the Olympians, the really successful business people, and they're icons. They're the heroes, depending on, where you're looking. At the end of the day, we just assume when we hear that someone either is suffering from depression or commits suicide or miserable or, can't stay married or can't hold, another job or can't retire, right? Like from fighting or whatever it is. What we forget, because, our relationship to them is social media. We're not with them when they're in their house, when they're walking around thinking. And so what we forget is, one of the things that I tell people when we're coaching, combat athletes, whether it's military, law enforcement, or sport, or just martial arts, I go, listen, what you believe and what we see are often different, and that's the litmus test.
Yeah.
And so you can believe this, but when we see real violence and when we see, people really moving when they're scared, you see that complex motor skill go out the window. And what we've tried to do from our system is get the education to a level where we can say your cognitive brain needs to not just respect, but also integrate what your reptilian brain, your limbic system, the amygdala, and everything's going to happen to you. That's going to happen anyways. So if you embrace it and study it and incorporate it, you're going to be safer sooner. My missing link there was like this, and explain, because you phrase it a certain way that's so elegant, but about the physiology and breath chasing each other.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just spontaneous. Go for it.
I mean, regardless of the response, typically what's happening is, especially, with what you were dealing with in high anxiety levels, especially when you spin up. It's like when you were just talking, when you were talking about how you woke up this morning, and, you were tiptoeing, and all of a sudden you drop something out of your pocket, made a loud noise, and normally you would have fucking flipped out and spun out and been like, fuck, because you would have woken everybody up or whatever, and all this stuff. Well, the fact is you've had enough training at this point with the breath work that you're actually, so what happens is in those typical situations is as you spin up, if you're not conscious of the spin up, of what's going on, then you have a breath that chases that spin up, and that breath that chases that adds the physiological reaction to it, and only exacerbates the entire process. So think of it in like a flight or freeze situation. Think of something like being in front of a fucking shark that you don't want to be in front of, like I was this last week. You're there in front of a 12 to 15 foot great white shark, and you have a choice. You go into a mode, and if you've prepared for that situation, that you have to be calm and you have to use a slower breathing pattern. If I start to speed my breathing pattern up, I tend to blow off CO2. If I'm blowing off CO2, I'm starting to create blood flow constriction, which is limiting my blood flow to the brain and to the heart, which is now narrowing my vision and keeping me tight, so that I'm literally only focused on this one thing versus having this peripheral of, oh yeah, I'm not just in the water with one fucking great white shark. There's 3, 4, 5 great white sharks in the water circling me right now. And I need to be fucking aware that all of them are what they're doing right now. And that was the situation I was in. And so but I was doing this for this exact response to understand, so that it's like, hey, how do I explain to the guy or the gal who doesn't want to get out of their house, who doesn't want to go out into society because they've learned to fucking be on Facebook and just watch everybody and there's nothing wrong with Facebook. I'm just using that as an analogy, but they don't know how to go out and socialize. And this is actually happening right now. We have kids. The research is coming out now. We have kids who don't want to get their driver's license. So 16-year-olds, they don't want to get their driver's licenses, and they don't want to have sex anymore. These are the two things that were the most important things in my life at that time. Right. And anybody I know who's my age or even remotely close to my age, which I'm 43 this year, and this was what we dreamed of: freedom and sex. I was just infatuated with both of these things, and kids are no longer infatuated with this. They are infatuated with their phone, and they were infatuated with getting text messages and who's responding and who's not responding, likes, and guess what? I'm as caught up on this shit as they are, and this is the facts. I have a phone. I get glued to it. I get caught on it. I get stuck in this time, and I have to pull myself away and get off of it.
So here's let's pull back. This is something that I talk a lot about, and it directly. So when I was doing a lot of my research on fear, like I have a fear of heights. So one of the things I did is I went skydiving to study fear and physiology and in a different type of breathing, right? You know, I got to think a lot more because it's only been like maybe less than 2 weeks that I've been kind of analyzing what's going on with my body. And I just want to, like, you know, this morning when I went to I pulled something out of my pocket and shit fell out. And normally, like, in my brain went, the dogs are going to start barking. I'm going to wake up the kids, and I'm an idiot. How come, like, I'm so clumsy? And this whole like reacting in you know, I love my mom, but like that's sort of how I grew up in the 60s. You screwed something up, you got yelled at. And so I was getting ready to yell at myself, and I didn't. And this is, you know, what I want the listeners to hear is I didn't today. Is I watched this thing drop. I observed the sound. I looked around to see if the dogs were going to bark, and then I noticed that I didn't freak at myself. And I smiled, and all I said to myself was, "That was smooth." You know, like making fun of myself as this coordinated martial artist that, you know, just dropped all the shit. But it was so different. And the only thing different in my life is the breathing. And coming back to you being circled by sharks and focus on that is something that I've been talking about a lot in the last year or two, because everyone, like in the personal defense, safety, combatives world, talks about the importance of situational awareness. And I thought about that, and I said, you know, on a couple of interviews, I said, do you know of any professional hunters of men, like military and law enforcement, that have been ambushed? Has that ever happened in the history of battle? And of course, the answer is, of course, it happens. I go, like, a little bit, a lot? No, it happens. Like, I go, so like, if professional warriors can be ambushed, then the answer isn't just simply we need to improve our situational awareness, because shit just happens sometimes. And what I was speaking to was, and I think this is what I want to help you share is something you talked about when you're working with your Olympians and your successful business people and other stuff, that those people are just people, and they suffer from the same stuff that everyone else suffers from. They're just type A, and they're not going to talk about it. Like, it's hard for me to talk about the fact that, you know, I was losing my fucking shit, and that I was, you know, because, like, wait a minute, I'm like this, you know, quasi, you know, public figure, web celebrity, you know, like, you're not supposed to have any problems. You're supposed to, right? You know, it's the first world problems, blah, blah, blah. But what I want to throw out there and get your take on, and what I said is there's no situational awareness if there isn't self-awareness. In other words, your unconscious bias, your prejudice, your ego, your inability to kind of introspect deeply and honestly impacts everything that you see inwardly and outwardly. So in the sense of personal defense and hand to hand, and that you'll get yourself into more problems because you lack self-awareness, not situational awareness, that they come hand in hand. And I immediately had this epiphany when you were talking there that if you can't put down the mask or the facade of, but I'm a world champion, and go, but I'm a human being and this is hurting and I'm scared, like, what should I do? Like, that you can't have a conversation. Nobody can help you.
Correct.
So
correct.
Yeah, so
and that is the difference.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, that is the difference between somebody who is going to remain not only a world champion, but somebody who's going to be able to walk away at the end and be able to kind of, you know, live a very productive and selfless life to a large degree. You know, somebody who outwardly wants to help other people to understand something. You know, Dr. Frank Merritt, who is a MD, works out of an emergency room down in Alabama, in the Florida Panhandle as well. And he works with a lot of Division I football players, and he works out of Auburn sometimes. And I met him at Pepperdine a number of years ago, and he came up to me because I had just run a quick little thing when I was doing some stuff with Laird Hamilton. up at a park. We did a big group thing. It was a breathing thing, and he came and did it. And he pulled me aside at the end, and he introduced himself, and he just said, "Hey, I just want to let you know what you're doing is going to change the way people are fucking really thinking about like breathing and training." Because I got to tell you, I've been working with these Division I football players, and we've got cornerbacks and running backs. And we got these guys who are the top 1% all on fitness levels. Like, we're talking they score the highest out of everybody, right? He goes, but pulmonarily, they are sitting at the 40 percentile general population. And that is a big problem. And this is a problem that we have, look, we know how to train the cardiovascular system and the muscular systems, but we do not know how to train the pulmonary system. We don't know how to train the respiratory system. We're just starting to tap into this now, to where it's something that we can really get with inside the human performance spectrum. But I ultimately think it's larger than the human performance world. It's more than exercise science. This is beyond that. This is like general population, man. Like, we have got to get people understanding that there's this thing that we're not doing to the best of our ability, and my stress is different than your stress, and we have to be able to map that out and help people get back to square one. And it just so happens that stress's relationship to the CO2 is pretty synonymous. And unfortunately, emotional stress is far greater than physical stress. So this is how we have been screening people and being able to lay a baseline and start to understand people on either recoverability or even where they're at physically or even mentally. Is, hey, they walk in and they start their breath work, and which is maybe 10 breaths in the morning, but it's a simple thing, and they can't get through it. Like, they can't get through 3 breaths because they're just cooked. And it's like, well, I didn't train that much yesterday. And it's like, well, what else happened? Did you lack of sleep, or what's eating at you emotionally? And what can we do with the breathing in order to regulate the nervous system and the brain so that we can get you back to square one? And we can actually we're actually seeing that we can do that pretty quickly. We've actually seen with concussions and TBIs, like, we've gotten people back to normal much, much faster than by not providing these protocols and these things. And this is I think the real groundbreaking stuff that we're doing, is we're able to fingerprint people based on a lot of the CO2 tolerance stuff and some questions, and running it by them, and some breathing patterns, and really checking this out, which you and I got to do like an in-person run through, which I can't do for everybody, because it's, but we're getting there with the technology in order to actually provide this as a fingerprint thing that's at your fingertips, to where you can actually do this.
Hey, listen, the thing, and I haven't articulated as clearly as I want, and that's why I wanted to get you on a call, is, what you did for me with, like, so simple, just the explanation, and like just reframing that whole vicious, that, you get scared, and so you get a physiological change. You don't notice, you don't have enough self-awareness to understand that your breathing just changed. So now you're incidentally hyperventilating. The oxygen to your brain is changing. That triggers and creates more pressure in your body, psychologically, emotionally. Next thing you know, like, this is the quicksand, and you're panicking, and you don't know how to get out of it. And you articulate it in such a clear way. And like I said, I've been just doing this for a week, and I just want to, like, you're talking about the impact of this is global, like that doctor said to you. And we tend to study, most people tend to study somebody who's like iconic or celebrity. Okay, we're studying the top athletes, we're studying the top. And somehow the message has to get out there that basically says, like, and it's when I created our Be Your Own Bodyguard program, the reason I called it that is I'd very often say to people, hey, like, do you have your own protective service detail? And they're like, what? I said, do you have bodyguards? They're like, no. I go, but aren't you a VIP? And they're like, what? And I was just like trying this tongue-in-cheek way to get everyone to recognize that they're the VIP in their life, and that most of us can't afford to have professional bodyguards. And so who is our own bodyguard? Who's there to protect our kids or ourselves or our wives? And we've got to be our own bodyguard. And in that original post that you wrote, and I just want to read something here because it's amazing how kind of parallel it is. I wrote, if you're scared shitless, unconscious, or dead, you don't get to your next move. And it's an idea that I've shared at every course, and my focus for decades has been helping people understand mindset, adaptive courage, and mental toughness. I'd always emphasize the mind navigates the body, and that if you're stuck in the fear loop, that's where you get dropped, in a fight or in life. What I never considered was how important breathing was. It's so simple. Literally, you die if you stop breathing, but you can also die emotionally and psychologically if you don't breathe deliberately. And that, I just wanted to read that part because what you're doing is so important, and I'm so excited that, you said something earlier that was, just part of
Tony.
Dude. I don't know. New technology just cut off, and was I talking or you talking when it cut off?
You were talking.
Okay. Well, that sucks. I don't know how it's going to splice together, do that. So, what we'll do is let's just do kind of like a wrap up where unless you've got like some critical thing you want to leave with people, but I'm just going to listen to this. It uploads automatically to Anchor. So it looks like it captured all the other part, but, if people want to learn more, about what you're doing, obviously Art of Breath, PowerspeedEndurance.com.
Yeah.
What else you want to tell them?
No, I think right now it's just Art of Breath, and then Power Speed Endurance. We do the breath assessment, which, people can do, and we can set them up, and, they can get set up for some morning and evening and even post, stressful situation stuff that can help, which is all the stuff you got. This helps build that CO2 tolerance and, keeps you more aware and kind of develops the skill of the breath work to a large degree, because there's actually like over 400 different combinations that you can actually do, and I'm not trying to overwhelm people, but that is about to, I would say, by January at some point we will have something developed that we're which is along the lines of the stuff that we're doing on fear and anxiety and even altering states. The idea is to kind of show people that you can use non-meditative practices like breath work in order to alter state and provide think of task switching and being able to go from one task to the other and processing and coming down and then coming back up and being ready to do something. And some people do this very well and some people don't, and some people want help and some people want to be more clear. And the big thing is that we all need to start to understand exactly how to come down off of what we're doing, and this is why we have a lot of the problems that we're doing. So this is where the work will really take its effect. But everybody can find that online on PowerspeedEndurance.com under the breath assessment, and they can just follow the work I'm doing, which we're promoting, and we're doing a lot of stuff, and we're trying to get as much information out there as we can, and we're working on a book as well, which is just about done. And that should be out as well. So, yeah.
Sweet. Well, it was awesome, and I'm excited we reconnected. It was one of those perfect storms and a whole bunch of synergistic things, which is nice because it reminds you of the coolness of life and relationships. So I will be sharing this all over the place, and I will probably check your schedule when I book my camp next year and see where you're at. Maybe have you come in as a guest speaker and just expose you directly to people. So,
would love
good stuff,
to,
my friend.
Thank
really
you, man.
Proud of you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
proud
buddy.
of you, dude. Yeah.
Love you. Speak to you
brother.
soon.
Love you too.
Peace out. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.